Hello, welcome. My name is Nick Howes. This is the Who Stole My Day webinar. So I'm really pleased to share this material with you. I've run this many times with hundreds and hundreds of people as live workshops, and thought it'd be fantastic to share it on a much wider footing via the medium of webinar. So I'm really pleased that you could join us, and hope that you're going to get fantastic, good ideas and things you can really put into practice that will help you over the next 30 minutes or so to be in more control of your time. The reality is everything you're going to get done this year, every success, every achievement is going to be a direct result of how you spend your time. And the more you are in control of your time, rather than it being stolen by other things and other people, then the more you are going to feel satisfied about having achieved your goals and headed in the direction that's really important to you. So I will disappear from you momentarily and share some slides with you. What I will be doing is making these available as an on-demand webinar replay, so you can watch this as many times as you like. So don't worry if things go a bit fast, you can review afterwards. And also I will be making myself available via the button underneath. You can book an appointment with me, as many people as I'm able to help, to talk further about some of the things that are raised in this webinar, if that would be helpful to you. So don't fear that this is your only slot of getting all this information. There's lots to take in. But for now, for the next 30 minutes, focus on picking up one or two ideas that you can put into practice straight away that will help you. Great. Okay, so these are some of the things that prompt people to come along and attend, and maybe you relate to some of these things, like being less stressed, getting more done, working fewer hours, having clearer goals and achieving them faster. In just a moment, we're going to look at some key foundational concepts that are crucial to be able to manage our time effectively. So many people I work with, and you may be the same, if I ask them, have you been on time management training before, read time management books or webinars, all those things, almost every hand goes up. So there's something, I then ask, did you stop doing those things, or have they not been effective because they were too difficult? Technically, the implementation of those things was beyond you. No hands go up. So it's not that it's so difficult, it's just about all the other things that get in the way. And so I want to help you with some ideas and some tools and resources that will mean that you can take things that are going to help you, put them into practice and keep on doing them. And that's what LMI is all about. As a company, we are so committed to helping people long-term make lasting change and achieve measurable results. Okay, this fits into an overall program called the Total Leader Concept, where we're essentially working in personal development and leadership development in these four key areas: productivity, personal leadership, motivational leadership and strategic leadership. But it all begins with this top left segment, which includes where we are today, looking at things like time management and prioritization, organization, things that will be the gateway into motivational leadership, strategic leadership, etc. How we spend our time keeping on top of our day-to-day responsibilities so the most important things get done is the foundation to leading our own lives and also to leading others. Okay, these four foundational ideas: clear direction, understanding the why, lasting change, and the slight edge. Let's go through these one at a time. Clear direction. Imagine getting off a plane, getting into a taxi and saying, "Take me home, taxi driver." What are they going to say? Well, where is that? Where are we going? And imagine not having a clear answer for the taxi driver. It just would be bizarre and they wouldn't know where to go. Just head north on fast roads. What? Hey, we're going to end up going, certainly even if we get in the rough direction, we're certainly not going to go the most efficient and quickest way to where you are. It all starts with clear direction. And when it comes to taking control of your time, it's massively important that you have a crystal clear picture of what success looks like, what you're trying to achieve with your time. What are your goals, whether it's family life, your working day, the plans for the next 10 years? It's all the same, because success is goal-directed action. Once I've got a goal, then I can be successful by taking steps in line with that. An extended version of that quote is that success is the progressive realization of worthwhile predetermined personal goals. It's the progress towards things that really matter. And so being able to use your time well starts with having a clear direction. Okay, the second one is understanding why. I can say to my kids, get your shoes on, get your coat on, we're going over to your nana's house, and they will say, why? And if I just say, do I have to explain every time, give a reason, can't we just do it? And they go, oh, okay. And I'm met with a bit of resistance, or at best lethargy. And 10 minutes later, nobody's by the door with shoes on, coats on. They got distracted. I couldn't find my shoes. I started playing a game, all sorts of stuff. And eventually I dragged them out the door. But it's taken a bit of effort. Compared to if I answer the question why with, well, I spoke to your nana, she's been down the shops, she's bought loads of sweets and says you can have as many as you like as soon as we get there. Suddenly, shoes, coat, 90 seconds later, come on, Dad, you said we're going. And everything is the same. The economy is the same. The environment's the same. The government's the same. But there was motive, reason, purpose. And so when we're helping ourselves to work effectively, we need clear goals, and we need to define for ourselves why those goals are important. What's the purpose behind them? Because it's the goals that give us focus and direction, and success and motivation are intrinsically linked together. It's behind when I have a goal and I achieve it, I feel successful. And when I'm successful, that increases my motivation and makes those goals in turn meaningful. So starting around this process of success and motivation, I'm sure you've seen people. A great example is somebody who falls in love. They're lazy, they don't really want to do much and can't be motivated to do much at all. And then you see them fall in love and suddenly they'll drive long distances to see somebody and work hard so they can finish quickly and get away on a train for the weekend or something. And you think their skills haven't changed. It was the motivation. And so we understand it, of course, that motivation plays a key part. It's not just about our technical skills when it comes to managing interruptions or handling our emails. For example, Paul J. Mayer, who founded LMI back in the 1960s, said, if you are not making the progress you would like to make and are capable of making, it is simply because your goals are not clearly defined. Alternatively, in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily acts of trivia. We do stuff. When we're not focused, we do stuff, and that wastes our time, even though we might feel like we're busy. Okay, the third of these foundational elements is a lasting change process. There's no point defining success, what we want, making quick progress towards it, and then discovering a couple of weeks later we tailed off, we lost a bit of oomph and impetus, and it stopped happening. We're better off if we've never started, because we have the disappointment, the disillusionment, the cynicism for next time. And whether that's with ourselves or whether that's in relation to others that we're working with, starting and not succeeding is often better to have not started at all. So we need a process when we define a meaningful goal to keep it happening and make it long term. So we define the success. What results do we need to get that success? What behavior is going to get us those results? And we don't stop with the behavior, saying, right, do that. We understand that behaviors come from attitudes. Attitudes are brought about by conditioning, often over many, many years, the way that we think, through spaced repetition, the repeated exposure. Spaced repetition is one of our favorite, I think the most important little terms. It's the repeated exposure to ideas, information and experiences that cause us to become the people that we are. So if we want to get different success, achieve more with our time, for example, we need to break that down to say, what input can we create? What infrastructure, what ongoing different thing can we do in a small way that is, if we keep on doing it, will recondition the way that we think, therefore our behavior, and we'll get lasting results. Much in the same way as we brush our teeth. It's by so many repetitions, it's become a way that we think, of course I brush my teeth, otherwise I'll get tooth decay and I'll have to go to the dentist more, and that'll be expensive and painful, as well as the practice of doing it. And those two things together mean that we do it pretty much every day without a beep on our phone to tell us we should do it. So think of it like brushing your teeth when you want to make some change as a result of something like this webinar. Motivation is what gets you started, but it's habit that keeps you going. Here's a slide. You may see this recurring, bit of spaced repetition when it comes to email auto receive or anything else that might interrupt you from doing the things that we've already talked about and will continue to talk about in this webinar. I'll say more about that in a minute. Fourth of these foundation ideas is the slight edge, and it's a term that was coined by Paul J. Meyer and has become really commonly used. Books been written with that title and all sorts of things. But it's this idea of marginal gains, small improvements, rather than saying, let's change everything, but let's break things down and improve them gradually by small margins. And so the cumulative effect is phenomenal and gets us where we want to get, using spaced repetition conditioning so we achieve long-term what we'd like to do, rather than peaks and troughs of lots of energy and then failing off and then we're back where we started, etc. And that's a really important thing. It's one that's often missed, of setting out, looking for 1%. And these are some areas that you might want to look for 1% in the way that you manage your time, communication, goal setting, organizing, planning, etc. So rather than let's change everything, let's build on what exists currently, what you do well, what is working for you, and let's improve it gradually. Okay, in the live workshops, here's a way to illustrate this. I'll put this up on the screen, and I'll say to people, you've got 15 seconds to memorize that, the letters and the shapes in exactly that order, and then I'll blank the screen and say, see how far you can get. Most times, the highest score out of 18, 9 letters, 9 shapes, will be about 9, and many people will get 4 or 5 because it's hard to memorize those jumbled up letters and shapes. And I'll say, what if I take all of that information and simplify it and give you 3 seconds to memorize it? And then I put this up and they've got 3 seconds, and then I blank the screen and say, now reproduce that, and everybody can do it. So in a fifth of the time, everybody gets more than double the results. And why is that? Well, it's the repetition of a process, a way of doing something that makes it far easier to process. So if I say the alphabet, you know which order the alphabet comes in. If I say draw a noughts and crosses grid, it's familiar. But many times we don't take that idea, that repetition, that systemization, and apply it to the things that happen to us all the time. Meetings, emails, planning, organizing, communicating, etc. And that's really at the heart of what we do, is help people to draw the lines from a jumbled up set of tasks and activities and things that happen and put them into order so you can get double the results in half the time, or even more impressive than that sometimes. So as just an illustration for you of what is achievable. Okay, now we'll think about being responsible for the actual things we do on a daily basis. And the first question is, are we being effective? And effective just means, are we doing the right things? The actual things I spend my time doing, are they the right things? And many times people, and I've come across this in all sorts of ways, sometimes quite comically and sometimes really tragically, where lots of time is being spent on things that actually make no contribution towards the goals, objectives for which their job exists. So are we doing the right things? And the second question is, are we being efficient? Which is simply, are we doing things right? Are we doing them in the best way with the best use of resources? And that question often, again, it's so easy through conditioning just to launch in and be busy and never take the time to think these things through. And so at the core of all this is the idea of personal management, taking responsibility for doing the right things the right way in order of priority. And that's true for me in work. It's true for me as a father, as a dad, being able to say to my kids, you know, they say you didn't come to our football matches, our shows, you never had dinner with us and played games. So it was the business I was in, it was the economy, it was Brexit, it was the environment, all sorts. But ultimately, I have to take responsibility that in my life, the right things happen the right way in order of priority. And that's an attitude rather than necessarily the skills it takes to manage your time. So these are some really important foundational things, and I encourage you to think about these now, but also beyond this session. Oh, so there we go. The email auto receive. It's the email is arriving at any time of day or night with a little ping or a message or a preview that takes us away. We might be doing the most important thing of the week, of the year, and we're conditioned to respond and turn our heads and see, pick up the phone, whatever it might be, something that may be completely inconsequential. So my encouragement to help put these things into practice, and often people will say, Nick, just doing that one thing, turning off the email auto receive so that I'm in control and I do those things on my time when I'm finished other things rather than being interrupted. And there's lots that talks about the cost of interruptions, and it's huge. And most people can find an hour, 2 hours extra a day when they really go to town on reducing and limiting the amount of interruptions that get into there. We'll say some more on that shortly. So the things we do, thinking about the actual activities we do, a key idea is the 80-20 result, 80-20 principle, or sometimes called the Pareto principle after the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto. And he really pioneered the looking at this and seeing that there are activities we do and they're not directly proportional to the results we get. In fact, he found that 80% of the results that we get are coming from just 20% of the activities we perform. And so if we are just doing all activity that comes our way, then we're typically spending 20% of our time on the 20% of activities that get us 80% of our results. But if we really know what those few things are that get us the most results, we can focus a far greater proportion of our time on those few things. And typically that can break down even to 5 or 6 key things that you do that get you results. And of course, that's dependent on knowing what results you need because you've got clear goals. There's no point doing this without clear goals. So the 80-20 rule is a really key one. And I encourage you to fill out those blanks, if you like, the activity, write everything you do. And on our extended program, get people to record everything they do over an entire week. And then you get the stark presentation of this is what I actually do in my time. I thought I was doing lots of this. In reality, I'm doing much less of that and lots more of these things. And then really go to town on planning around the things which get us the most results. So the 80-20 rule is really important. Because most people don't have time to think about those things, due to the fact that they're operating in crisis mode. And crisis mode, let me look at a little bit about this. It's an interesting phenomenon, and it starts with arriving at work, wherever you might go to work, and doing stuff. I'm so busy. There's so much pressure. I just got to get there and get on. And what's the first thing most people do? And if I could see your hands, you'd have your hand up. And because I've asked this to hundreds of people in recent months, and there's only 2 answers I get to this: check emails, and the other answer is have a cup of tea or coffee and then check emails. And the problem with that is when we check our emails, we invite all sorts of rubbish into our day, most of which is completely inconsequential to what is our priorities and the things that are most crucial for us achieving our goals. And then we start sorting through them. So we respond, we start trying to get delete things, reply. Somebody, a colleague comes and just wants to talk to us. We're off to a meeting and then we're back and we've got email, it's half written and we can't remember what we started. We have to go back to it. And in the midst of all that, trying to manage what's most important, what should I be doing, etc. And while all of that is going on, that plate spinning, firefighting, we communicate as we go on the hoof without prior thought. And often that can mean that we're too late. People can't help us as they would otherwise have done if they'd had more notice. We put other people into crisis mode because they're suddenly having to drop things and respond because we need things from them. And we maybe don't communicate as graciously as we might otherwise when we're under less pressure. And so that can lead to, interpersonal challenges, all because we're operating in this firefighting crisis mode. And we get to the end of a day like that and we go, what were my goals? What was I trying to achieve today? Because I didn't get anywhere near them, or if I even knew what they were. And the question is, what results does this create? And we talk about things like it's stressful, to a point of at a low level, it's stressful, but even at a high level, it can have more serious stress issues. Communication is poor. Relationships can suffer. More mistakes are made, and other things like that. So we really don't want to be in crisis mode, but so many are, through conditioning and repetition of that's what they learned when they first started work, it's what their bosses have done and people they've seen, and it's just become the norm in the workplace. So how are we going to do this differently? You may have come across this before, this urgent important matrix. People like Stephen Covey and others before him have talked about this a lot, and it's a key part of what we need to think about here. The things are either urgent or they're important, or non-urgent, non-important, and there's 4 options. Urgent means that we respond to it, and it has we ask people slightly tongue-in-cheek to define it, having the appearance of demanding your immediate attention. So it looks like you have to drop everything. An email flashed up. Although it's not urgent, it appears, because we're conditioned just to respond and drop everything. And lots of it, I think the 80-20 rule applies here. What appears urgent actually isn't, and could be dealt with in a longer term, whether that's later that day, the next day, next week, etc. Longer term way. Important has to do with, is it helping me get results? Is it achieving my goals? So if it's urgent, important, urgent, non-important. And this box 3 is really interesting, because it's where things look important or they look urgent. They feel the same as box 1, but actually they contribute nothing towards our goals. And there's been some surveys done that suggest that people in the UK are sometimes spending up to 40% of their working week doing things that are non-important. They're not contributing towards the goals that they need to achieve. So box 1, reactive. Box 2, proactive. That's where we're being a leader of our own life, of taking responsibility. And that's where we want to be as much as we can. Deception is box 3. Looks urgent, feels urgent, but is not actually important. And escape, box 4. And so if we can learn to say no, really identify, and this is where that 80-20 previous slide about the things that are most important to us, and we can recognize the things that are non-important or less important and say no, do more of being proactive. That's where anything that has the word development in it or planning is in that phase where we're setting our goals, where we're devising plans, we're developing people, we're delegating, we're planning our communication, personal development, all of those sorts of things sit in that box. And it's where we're typically at our most effective. We sometimes have to react, and we can't get away from that, but we want to do it less. And as soon as we've finished, really help people a lot to recognize how that happens and go back to box 2 when those things happen. So we've dealt with something urgent, and rather than getting caught there the rest of the day, we go back. And we go to escape by choice, because we've been productive and we've got things done. I think that's a really key thing. It's not about not doing those things that it's about rest, recuperation, which are very important in another sphere to help maintain our levels of productivity. So I don't think so. We're not looking to be super machines that are on the go 100% all the time. If we can be effective, then we can certainly manage to rest and recover as well. Okay, there's that slide again. This is why this is important, because we want to stop being continually dragged into urgent and being drawn away from our focus on things that are really important. So the opposite of crisis mode we looked at is proactive mode, which begins with plan and set goals. So begin, and I talk about at the end, 10 magic minutes, 10 minutes every day to plan and set goals for what needs to be achieved. Then schedule and communicate. Put those goals and plans into time slots and communicate as much as possible with people that have a stake in what we are going to be doing, whether it's that day, that week, etc. So communicate upfront rather than as an afterthought. Then we implement the plan and we review our results. And like the noughts and crosses grid, where we can suddenly get twice as much done in half the time, if we follow the same pattern day by day by day, it becomes familiar and we can be far more effective and efficient at getting that done. And what different results does this create to crisis mode? Well, it's more in control, it's less stressful, people are more aware of what's happening, people understand the goals and can work towards them, and all sorts of other benefits by working that way. But it really does take a concerted effort to move from one way of working to something. And sometimes people say to me, Nick, it just feels wrong because I feel like I just want to launch in and get on because that's what I've always done. And it feels wrong to stop and plan, but I can see that I'm being so much more effective. Okay, let's move on here. Did you know for every minute you spend planning, you can save 4 to 10 times that amount in execution? Wow. Or finding an extra 30 minutes a day is equivalent to having an extra 22 work days per year based on, you know, breaks and other things. That 30 minutes of being productive, it's an extra month, 22 work days a year, an extra month. And most people, I think, and certainly that's been my experience and feedback from working with people on this, an extra hour a day is very achievable. That's 2 extra months per year. What would you do with that? Would you work more? And what would you do in that time? Would you go home, see a family, play a sport, learn a language? What would you do with 2 extra months per year that have already been paid for with the same level of productivity? Interesting questions. Hey, and this is a really important one. Land one plane. An hour of uninterrupted time is 4 times more productive than broken time based on the amount of interruptions that occur and how long it takes to get back to where you were after the interruption. So if you can schedule an hour of being completely uninterrupted, or even 20 minutes, you're going to get done in that time what would have taken 4 times longer. And so there's so much opportunity to be more effective and take more control. But the starting with the mindset of I will take control and I will get more done so that I can then go and proactively be responsive to others. It's not I'm shutting others out, the customers or my team or whoever. I'm going to create more time to be more focused and responsive to them and do a better job for them. And there's lots more I can say on that. And if you'd like to think, particularly those of you that say, but I've got customers and I need to respond to them because of the industry I'm in, please click the button underneath and schedule a time. I'd love to talk to you some more about ways that you can help that to happen. That's going to be positive for your relationship with your customer as well. Okay, so moving into thinking about actually putting the plans into place. Big picture, tube map. I love this. It's an incredible work of art, the tube map, where you can plot and plan big picture journeys. How do I get from here to there? And this is where I am coming into London from this way, etc. But in the midst of the rush hour, when you're climbing in and off a train and it's absolutely jam-packed, that's too detailed for you to handle, and it would just leave you struggling. And lots of times people have big picture goals and ideas, but not a format that's going to help them on any given day. And that's why the London Underground then gives you this. Once you're on the right track for that journey, you can just track it step by step by step. And this is key to managing this who stole my day idea and taking back control. So here's a couple of resources that can help you to do this. One is very simply a time picture. Call it Mission 168. You've got 168 hours in a week, and thinking through what are the most important things that I need to do on a weekly basis, because most of what you do will be recurring. So you can start to block time consistently to make sure those most important things happen. Don't fill your time entirely because that's not reasonable, but you can take some slots and make sure they happen, and as well as putting in family time, health time, exercise, that sort of thing. Remember at school you have your timetable, because they say in 2 years this is what you need to pass this exam. So we'll just schedule the high payoff lessons that are going to get you over time to the right level of learning to pass your exams. And it's I wrote a blog a while ago called The Interrupting History Teacher. You're in a geography lesson, there's a knock on the door, geography teacher's just getting going, and the history teacher pops in and says, oh yeah, I'm sorry, just wanted to let you know, Battle of Hastings, 1066, King Harold shot in the eye with an arrow. We'll talk more on that lesson tomorrow. Bye. And the geography teacher's a bit irritated and then thinks, okay, he's got to go back to the beginning, undo the clutter that's now in the students' minds to start again. He's back behind where he was when he first started. He's just getting going, knock on the door, maths teacher comes in. Just wanted to let you know a bit of algebra that I wanted to pass on, and then we'll talk about that next lesson. And the geography teacher is irritated again. We would never tolerate it, because it would make those hour blocks that you have for a lesson really, really ineffective and unproductive. And it would be a waste of time. But we tolerate that all the time in our working lives, and it's this idea of blocking time to do most important things, and then outside of those blocks, then be reactive and responsive and go about all your communication. And people will accept it if they know when you are available. And we can talk some more of that, but it's a really important idea. Okay, so these is why, the interrupting history teacher, turn off your email auto receive, or if it's drop-in interruptions, find ways, and there are many ways to handle those things, or in an open plan office, or it's the phone, whatever it might be. And finally, this is a tool I'd like to share with you again about drawing these lines, noughts and crosses, so you can consistently do things the right way and activate this proactive mode rather than crisis mode. It's a simple template for organizing your day. I use it every day. Lots of people I've worked with have found it very, very helpful, and I'll share it with you, and you can have a think about how you plan your day. And if you like to use it, use something like this, and even get hold of this template, then book a slot with me and we can talk it through, and I can make those resources available to you. But the important thing is having something with repetition and conditioning that you do all the time that gets you the results that you require. So the simple plan, 10 magic minutes. Remember I mentioned that. Look, first of all, at going from your online calendar, your Outlook, whatever you use, and saying, right, these are the blocks of time that are already committed. And then filling in the box that says must do today. These are the tasks that I must do today, but I'm only putting in things based on the time available that I'm committing myself to do. And if some of them are quite big things, like this Project A report that needs some scheduled time, I'll then put that into the calendar. I'm not going to fill the whole day because you need some space to respond to what happens. But I know now, most important thing, Project A report, it's got a block of time. If somebody comes along and says, can you help me with this? No, I'm busy with this report, but I have got some time at 3:30 this afternoon. Can we schedule 5 minutes then? Okay, then we record additional tasks today. Remember, this is all happening up front at the beginning of the day, 10 minutes before we launch into all those other things. It gives us a basis to follow, a template to follow, a track to run on that keeps us at least aware of what we do. Additional tasks today, they're the nice to do. They don't absolutely have to be done today, but if I get onto them, that would be brilliant. And I only start working on these when I've finished everything in the A box, must do today. And then communication, people I need to call, contact, follow up with, etc. And then I may schedule a block of time for that if time is tight and those things need to happen. So there's a simple way for scheduling and organizing your day. This idea of 10 magic minutes. We're not talking about spending 2 hours every morning to make a master plan. It's just the repeated habit of putting first things first, making sure that the really important stuff gets done, rather than, if you've had that experience, I've had it many times, you get to the end of the day and go, this most important thing hasn't happened, and now I've got to work the evening, or now I've got to stay late. When if I'd really been organized and focused, I could have postponed that nice conversation I had, or those few things that I did that came up, and said, no, I'll get these done first, and they could have waited till later. Okay, that is the end. This Who Stole My Day, some ideas, resources to help you be more in control of your time. I appreciate there's many more things that can be discussed from this. We have a whole program. That productivity section of the Total Leader Concept is a 12-week program, just in bite-sized chunks, not long times out of your work. And if you'd like to talk about that, have some help on some of those things, or just pick my brains for 15 minutes about how you apply some of these ideas, click the box, schedule a time, and I'll respond to as many of those as I possibly can, because I really enjoy the satisfaction of seeing people go from super stretched, time is so busy, and not enough time to do things that are really important, both in work and with family and kids and all sorts of other things, hobbies that are helpful. And a friend of mine who I've worked with a while ago, a couple of years ago, said, Nick, it's the first time in years I'm not stressed all the time, just by having some structure to follow. And that's what I really enjoy, and would love to help you some more if that would be beneficial to you. So click the box, schedule a time. You can also got my email there if you want to drop me a line, and also the blog that I write at nickhouse.info, and you'll see on there how to connect on LinkedIn and Twitter and all those other ways that we can be in touch. Thank you very much for your time. I will just finish this by stop the sharing so you can see that I'm still here and talking away. My very, very warmest thanks for sharing this half an hour. And I hope we can be in touch soon. And if I can help you some more, that would be brilliant. Okay, bye-bye.